Hey, everybody. What's going on? This is Rob Cesternino, and I have a very special show for you tonight. It was 1 week ago tonight that I got a phone call from Sean Rector, and he said to me, Rob, we need to get together and have a live roundtable panel with the Black Survivor alumni. And I said, Sean, let's do it. And here we are, 1 week, later. We are live here with an amazing panel of African-American survivor players from over the years. And let me bring in a man who brought us all together here tonight, Mr. Sean Rector. Sean, how are you?
Hey, Rob, how are you? How you doing?
Doing okay.
Me. Doing just okay?
I'm doing okay. I'm very nervous that we're gonna have some technical issue or anything like that, and Clarence will yell at me. So I'm very just hoping that I don't get roasted too badly again.
Man, we all right. Yeah, all right. I got you.
Yeah. Yes. But Sean, thank you. This was an amazing idea. I'm so happy that we were able to get this to all come together.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I've been wanting this for about 20 years. After Giuseppe and I finished our season 4 of Marquesas, you know, I did a BET online thing, and I remember pitching to one of the executives, hey, why don't you get the Black reality stars on one panel? And at that time, it was just Survivor, Big Brother, and then The Real World and a show called Road Rules. There weren't that many, but there were enough where you started to see the same type of issues on every show. They balked on it, so it didn't build traction. And then, you know, I would subsequently bring it up on interviews that my wish would be that we can have a place where we can talk about a collective experience. Because usually when we would describe them individually, it would seem like it wasn't valid, right? You would also be seen through these racial tropes and stereotypes. And I just figured if the world could all see us together and see the through line, even though we're different individuals and Black people are not a monolith, we don't think the same, feel the same, but our experiences are usually very similar. That if we can talk about it, that the producers on not just Survivor, but on reality shows and the editors would take caution and have a little more concern as to how the editing goes and even the opportunities that follow after.
So, Sean, should we introduce everybody that's here tonight on this panel?
No doubt.
Okay.
So, I'm gonna let you go in order.
Yeah, why don't we start with Sharia is here. Sharia, could you just tell us a little bit about, for anybody who's watching us, who remembers you, of course, from Survivor China, what you've been up to?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. So Sharia Lloyd, I am currently located in Atlanta, Georgia, and my current occupation is an education consultant or regional director for Scholastic, for those that remember the book fair company. So what I do is I do professional development with teachers across the country. That's what I've been doing for a number of years, and I continue to do that work, educating children and specifically Black children across the country.
Okay, so Sabrina Thompson from Survivor One World is here.
Hi guys, thanks so much for hosting us, Rob. I'm Sabrina Thompson, now Mitchell, so I'm a newlywed.
Oh, yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I was on season 4.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Listen, someone told me if I survive first year with COVID and all this stuff, then I'm pretty good to go. But what I'm doing now, basically, after I was runner-up on the show, took the money, invested it into a media production company called Coup Productions. And for the last 8.5 years, the company has taken off. So I am a TV director. I direct TV commercials for very large companies, small companies. I travel the world and tell stories. And one of the things I'm most honored to do that actually ties into what we're going to talk about is I had the privilege of being one of Hillary Clinton's cinematographers during her presidential campaign. But what I focused in on was the mothers of the movement. And these are the mothers of Trayvon Martin, Sean Bell, Sandra Bland, you name it. And I traveled the world with them telling their story. And I just sat back, opened up my ears, turned on the camera, and I also edit. So to be able to tell their stories through their pain, and to know that these mothers keep adding on because the people keep, they keep dying and whatever, that was their thing that they did not want. They didn't want the group of mothers to expand. So let's start talking tonight and see how we can all come together and see how we can just make this world a better place in the most radical way possible.
Okay, we've also got from Survivor Thailand, Big Ted Rogers is here. Ted, how are you?
Thanks, Rob. I'm doing absolutely fantastic, and thanks for allowing this particular panel and this platform to happen. And as Sean mentioned earlier, this was definitely much needed. So I was part of season 5, Survivor Thailand, as you just mentioned, and I'd like to just give a quick kudos to Visepia and Sean, because they were the ones that really inspired me to even apply for Survivor. And so I applied immediately after their season, and boom, this has happened. So as far as what I'm doing, I work for a major corporation, top 100 corporation, and I'm a project manager focused on mergers and acquisitions. And I'm toying with retirement, give or take, but I'll probably stay on board maybe another 3 or 4 years, give or take. My primary focus, though, has really been raising my pre-survivor baby, which is my daughter, as well as my post-survivor baby, which was my son right after. So they're my souls, my heart, my air, and that's kind of what I've been doing since. Thanks again, Rob.
Okay, thank you, Ted. All right, also with us tonight from Survivor The Edge of Extinction, Julia Carter is here. Julia, how are you?
Well, how are you, Rob?
Very excited to hear from you tonight. And then we will also be chatting later on this week about going even deeper into your experience.
Right. I'm grateful that you're providing multiple platforms, one of which we're on tonight, as well as the Black Voices series, which I'm so grateful to be a part of and be speaking with you soon. But yeah, I also feel like I'm the baby amongst everyone, like season 38. So I'm like seeing all these faces like, oh my gosh. But yes, I'm Julia Carter from season 38, Edge of Extinction, the beautiful twist that, everyone loves. So thank you for allowing me to be here and be amongst everyone. I'm currently based in Newark, New Jersey. I just started on Monday, my 3rd year of medical school. So working to become a proud Black in this world to kind of eliminate some health disparities and help Black and brown communities who are afflicted by many health disparities and many health issues that are specific to our community and that are causing them to have, detrimental health outcomes. So thank you again for allowing me to be here. And I'm grateful, and I'm excited to hear from my fellow, Black castaways about their experiences as well.
Okay. We've heard from Sean already, but Sean, I just want to say I'm so happy that we were able to reconnect over this last week to put this together, because just going back to Survivor Marquesas, you were one of my all-time favorite players to watch.
And I'll give you $5 after this.
Oh, you got it.
You ain't got to do that. But no, you know what, man? I'm humbled by this whole experience. Thank you. I don't want to take anybody's time. When it's my turn, I'll speak, but I appreciate it.
Okay. Of course, from Survivor Palau, Yolanda Jones is here. Hold on, you're on mute.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, you're good.
And this is not a Sprint commercial. So thanks, Rob. Thanks, T-Bert, for having us. I think this is a very important conversation. So my name is Yolanda Jones. I was on Survivor Palau, which is season 10. So I'm a lawyer. I'm an activist. I'm a criminal defense lawyer and human rights lawyer. So I deal with the racial profiling of Black boys, men, and people. Since I've been a lawyer in 1995, I actually have a series, and I'm actually doing one at the end of this week on knowing your rights when the police encounter you, because they generally encounter us. We don't encounter them. I also work with Ben Crump on cases. He has a number of cases here, but we worked on Robbie Toland's case together. So, and George Floyd happens to have been a student at one of the schools that I was a trustee over, but I'm a former elected official, city council, a school board, and state Democratic Executive Committee, which are three separate governmental agency or quasi-governmental agencies. And my experience on Survivor is very similar to what I experience in the world today. I mean, and I think when you finish talking with us, you'll see a lot of the Black Survivor contestants, we talk about the things we dealt with, but we just talked about it amongst ourselves, and everyone thinks that everything was fair and it wasn't. But it's not something that outside of the Black race we talk about to other people, because people don't want to admit that it happens. And then we got to worry about hurting people's feelings, and we're all professional. I mean, you see Julia's a doctor, you've got people in high profile jobs, and we don't want to be retaliated against. So I'm just really thankful for Sean to have gotten this going so quickly. I'm thankful for all of us and the moves we're making together and apart that are intended to have some sort of reconciliation with CBS so that we can get a fair treatment. And I just want to bow down to Vecepia, because she is the first Black woman to win Survivor, the first Black person to win Survivor, and she is only one of 2 Black women to win any reality show, and she was the first, and there will never be a first. And at least at a minimum for me, because if you blinked, you missed me on Survivor, because I went out fast. I want for V to be treated with the esteem that she has earned, and we, almost all of us, revere her.
And here she is, Vecepia.
Well, damn. Ramona. Rob, as always, you know, I talked with you a couple months ago, you and T-Bird, during the last Survivor season. Always a pleasure. And I'm really in awe right now, just seeing all these beautiful Black people together. We've waited a long time for something like this, and this venue has been long overdue. Sean, you know where you are in my heart, bruh. You are more than anything. And I don't know if a lot of you know, but he's actually my son's godfather. And he's been there for him since the beginning, since the very, very beginning. And so just having this opportunity, thank you, Sean. What have I been doing? You name it, raising a teenager. He's 17 now, it's hard to believe that. I was on season 4, the winner of Survivor Marquesas. And the last 15 years, I've been in healthcare. So Julia, I am a director of patient experience. So I get all the complaints. Every time a patient is concerned or angry or frustrated, it comes to me. But not only do I work with the patients on that end, I also work with the staff. We do a lot of training on what our patients are telling us that we need to be doing better. And in light of our situation that's going on right now, one of the big topics obviously is unconscious bias, is health disparities, is inequalities, injustices. All of these things are coming up. So we're doing a lot of training and coaching around that, so our staff can know what to do. I work at a very large, prestigious healthcare system here in the Bay Area. I love the work that I do, but this right here is what I'm excited for, because my main thing that I would like to see, despite me being the winner and haven't been asked back, but I want to see some of us at the table actually doing the editing, actually producing the shows, out there on the island with us and talking to someone and halting someone when they say, hey, let's edit it this way. And they say, no, I'm not going to do that to that brother. I'm not going to do that to that sister. And just keep it 100. That's what I'm here for. I don't particularly care about going back out there to play again, unless they do a family version. Me and Jordan can go out there and play, since he's 17 now. Do that, I'll be out there. But I really have no desire to go back anymore. But what I do want is to make sure that those that do go out there have the right people at the table to represent us properly.
Okay. Clarence Black from Survivor Africa is here. Clarence, how are you?
What's up, man? You all right? Hey, how's Chad doing?
Yeah, God, sorry, Akiva is not here today.
Where's Chad at?
Yeah.
No, I season 3, mostly known for a little issue I had with my tribe on day 3 when I procured without permission some food, and it became a big deal. You know what? Funny enough, and we'll get into that, man. I did take beans, but the cherry thing was all editing, and so I can say without doubt, like that shit was smoothly edited. And look, I'm from Detroit, and I'm straight inner city Detroit. So when I tell you something was smoothly edited, I was sitting back like, oh, I got like smooth. They went in my pocket and got me so smooth. So that is a little known fact that the cherry thing was, that was editing. They got me good on that. So I did Survivor when I was 24 years old, and I'm thankful for it. It opened up so many doors for me. Today, man, I am a jack of all trades. I have my own business doing voiceover work. I've done voiceover work for the Army, which I've been in the Army. I'm a captain in the Army. I've been in the Army for 10 years. I am married to a beautiful, amazing Army veteran, my wife. After wife number 1, because, you got to practice that shit first. Wife number 1 didn't work out. So I ended up with wife number 2, which we got it right, So see, second chances. I have 4 amazing kids, 2 from my first marriage, 2 from my second marriage. And man, I am blessed. I've had an amazing life. I literally am doing everything I want to do, from voiceover and, acting here in Metro Detroit. I do a sports show, kind of like you do this show. I do a sports show twice a week on a platform called NRM Streamcast. And then, I get to serve my country. So, these are conflicting times for me as a Black Army officer, and as a kid who grew up in the city of Detroit, where my interactions with cops were, they were heavy. So, but last thing I'll say, man, is, I've been taking notes, like, just there's some Black excellence on this panel. And it is really uplifting, to be doing this with, with a who's who of people. So, and then the last thing I'll say is, kudos to Sean, man. Sean, it's a testament to Sean. Like, Sean and I were seasons apart. We live thousands of miles apart, but there are some people that are so genuine that they can call you and ask you for anything. And that's T-Bird, that's Sean. V is just one of those people, like, I know V is around, and I can't sit here and say that I've been like in close touch with V, but like V is a legit, like V is a banner. So if V said anything like, I need you to do this, I would do it, and then you. So, I'm, again, man, Survivor has blessed me in just so many just crazy ways. So, but I would not, like, I got done in 2000. So 2000, when were we, T? 2001?
2000? I think we finished. Yeah. Rob, give us the stats, Rob.
Yeah, you guys played in 2001.
Yeah, and so people forget, like, man, we came home. Yeah, so we came home and the world changed. So Survivor Africa was weird. We literally came home, man. We were home for like a couple weeks, and then them planes hit that building. And then it was just like the world, just everything that we knew, changed. So when I say, like, I did Survivor and then I moved on. I never thought about it. I kept in touch with very few people. So I think I've done more Survivor stuff in the last 6 months because the people I love have asked me to do stuff than I have in the last, maybe 18 years. So I'm just I'm really happy to be here, and I'm really in awe of many of you on this panel.
Okay, this is very
And you look
exciting.
good in that yellow too, man. You like, I ain't black people rock yellow like that. You look good, yo. I gotta start wearing more yellow, man.
All right. This is very exciting that we have Rory Freeman here today. Rory from Survivor Vanuatu. Rory, how are you?
I am blessed, Rob. How are you? It's nice seeing you, brother.
Yes, so great to have you on the panel.
Thanks for having me, and thanks to Sean for helping arrange this, and thanks to everybody that I've spoken to. It's so nice to see so many positive Black folks. And I know that's nothing new for us, but the fact of the matter is we're all struggling, and it's just nice to see healthy, good-looking, productive Black folks without having to worry about all the other stuff. So thank you, Rob, for having me. And I'm Rory Freeman. I was from Survivor 9 Vanuatu. I work for the city of Des Moines. I run a union, which is 50-50. Some people like us, some people don't. Just leave my employees the fuck alone. We won't have a problem. Raising a 18-year-old boy who just graduated last weekend. Happy Father's Day to all y'all. You know, that's a blessing in and of itself. 18-year-old Black man going to college next year, you know, and then I got a 12-year-old young Black girl who's that's a whole different. That's a whole different. I don't know a whole lot about girls, but I'm learning. So, and, you know, times are tough for everybody. We're having a very, very difficult time. But, you know, we're all champions and survivors. It's not like we ain't struggled before. So this ain't a huge, you know, we just keep our heads down, keep grinding, and do the best we can. It's nice seeing you. I'm so happy to see all y'all, though.
All right. We have here, of course, the specialist from Survivor Redemption Island and Survivor Caramon. Philip, how are you?
Doing pretty darn good. It's great to see you and get an opportunity to see some faces I haven't seen before, and also see us so well represented on this panel. I'm so glad that Sean and Sepia and Yolanda, you know, got together and pulled me into this because, as you all know, the world got to know me in a way that I didn't know me, in terms of the way my edit was done. As many of you, you know, they made fun of me saying I was a former federal agent. But what they didn't tell about that story is I didn't graduate from college, but I was always a voracious reader, and I went to the public library and I read everything I could about a particular federal agency. And when I got out of the military, they were so impressed with my knowledge, as the young woman, Diane Hardy, the special agent they brought in at the finale, said. I went into the program and I completely memorized all the manuals. And so it was a very lengthy process, but I scored 100 on every single thing I did, and, you know, demonstrated my expertise. And then when I got injured, I decided to move on into a more professional field. I went and learned everything I could about technology. And again, without a college degree, became a senior executive, you know, earning $200,000 to $300,000 a year, traveling all through the United States, doing corporate presentations to the Fortune 1000. In fact, when Survivor discovered me, because I never applied, I never even watched the show. Everyone here knows part about me roller skating and Lynn Stillman stopping me. What they didn't know was that I had never watched the show. And so I really didn't have you know, a broad foundation as somebody who's a super fan. And I really didn't understand when they called me and said, we need you to wear, you know, these shoes, these pants, these shorts. We'd like you to wear some other colors. I sent in probably 20 pairs of underwear. And they said, no, we want you to wear pink because somebody else is already wearing those other colors. And we try to make it so that everybody's not wearing the same. I had no idea really, you know, how that was going to play out. And so when when we talk a little bit further, I'm going to, you know, go a little bit further in that. But in terms of my career and where I'm at today, I'm retired. I'm fortunate. I'm a double dipper. You know, I'm retired military, and also, you know, qualify for Social Security. You should say that out loud, brother. you know, but I've paid my dues. I've written several books. Some of them have done, better than the others. I enjoy my life right now. I have a 26-year-old son. He's in the process of being special forces. He's trying to get into in the Army. He's taken all the tests with COVID-19. He hasn't been able to leave yet because they're not pulling the troops in, because they've had cases where people have come in and then all the troops get sick. I myself am a COVID-19 survivor. I don't know if you all saw that story. It ran that, I battled, and got back to being healthy again. But I'm really, really proud that we're now finally have an opportunity. I think Sean said it extremely well at the front end of this, where he said, individually, you try to speak to it. And that is the most painful part, because it's been my ability to speak and my ability to articulate that allowed me to become a successful executive, to live here in Southern California the last 25 years, have the lifestyle that I have. But at the same time, I couldn't overcome that media machine, interactive media, the stereotyping that they do. And I would just be drowned out over and over again. I also want to say before I move on, I'm grateful to Rob, because you would always, when one of your writers or somebody would say something and I'd get back to you about it, you'd immediately do the clarification or either have them remove it or take it down. And to the extent that you could do that, I really do appreciate that. I also want to thank Visepia, because Visepia, when I came off of Survivor, I don't remember how it happened, but she was the first person to call me. The first person I saw was Earl Cole, who stopped and greeted me and welcomed me into a group of people, brothers here and others, and made me feel welcome to the best that they could. They all wondered, was I really crazy or not when they first met me because of that edit. And we've got some funny stories there. But I'm grateful to Visepia, because she did reach out to me right away, and I think she kind of knew a little bit, kind of like what I just went through. So I'm grateful to that. So I bow my head down, as well as everybody, and I would like to see her get her due, as well as our brother Earl Cole being the first brother that won. And I also want to thank the young people that are participating, because Julia Carter and the other groups that it's out there, I've read some of the threads and everything that Julia has uttered out of her mouth, and I've been quite impressed in terms of the way she puts forth her argument. It's amazing, and she's seen some things I've already posted recently. So power to the young people, keep it up, and grateful to the wisdom that we're getting for some of the other people on this call as well. So thank you so much for having me and letting the old man come to the table.
Okay, thank you, Philip. We're very excited to have here somebody from the very first season of Survivor. It was 20 years ago this summer that people were watching her run around the island of Borneo. Here is Ramona. Ramona, how are you?
I'm great, Rob. How are you?
Yeah, doing great. Ramona, yeah, it's been you were one of the first survivors I got to hang out with. We remember we took that flight together from Newark Airport.
Yes. Thank you so much, Rob. And T-Bird, it's great to see you as well. This is amazing. I am so honored to be a part of this forum. I'm Ramona. I was on the first season of Survivor, so I feel like I have a really unique perspective, since there was really no precedent that I could kind of fall back on. So, I kind of went out there as a wide-eyed, I'm looking for an adventure 26-year-old, and just had no idea what I was getting myself into. I was a chemist for a major pharmaceutical company when I went on the show, and when I became pregnant in 2010, I stopped working in the lab and became a project manager, so global chemistry sourcing project manager. And so now I have an 8-year-old son. So that's why this current climate that we're in hits me really hard, because I look at my son, and he's cute, and he does his thing, but I think, okay, in 5 years he's going to be 13, and in 10 years he's going to be 18, and if he puts a hoodie on and he's running through our neighborhood, or he's driving a car and he's pulled over, he's going to be weaponized. They're going to look at him and they're going to weaponize my baby. And that scares the shit out of me. Excuse my language, but like it mortifies me. And so long overdue conversation. I'm so grateful to Sean for making the call, Yolanda for, setting up the space where we could make this happen, for the hosts, and just for everyone that has been able to call in and take part and to just lift our collective voices. It's time that we're heard. I mean, again, we've spoken to each other and had aha moments like, oh man, that happened to me too. And now I feel like, there's no better time than to say, okay, you know what? Enough talking amongst ourselves. Let's share our stories. So I am glad to be here, and yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ramona. We also have here with us the winner of Survivor Fiji, the King of Fiji, Earl Cole. Earl, are you back with us? Yeah, hold on, you're muted. You're muted. Hold on, you're still muted. You're still muted. Yes.
I said, I just heard my name, so I ran over. I apologize. I have a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old, and they do not care about what time this meeting is happening. So I'm back and forth. So my apologies.
Okay.
It's out of control. As you see, it's a trampoline. One of them wanted to jump in the trampoline naked, and I tried to keep that from happening so you guys wouldn't witness this crazy stuff. But yes, so thank you for having this, John, for all this. I think this is wonderful. I didn't hear everybody's introduction, so I don't know all of you, but I do know all of you at the same time because I keep up with everybody's Black on the show. So I'll give you my perspective if that's what you want to hear. I'm assuming Vecepia already spoke about what you go through when you win the show. So for me, I'll just go straight to it. It was very different. The season before mine was, is anybody from that season Cook Islands? No, nobody's from Cook Islands. So they did the race separation show. So I saw one episode of that before I left to go to Fiji. And I saw that they had the Asian tribe, Black tribe, white tribe and all that. And I heard that the Black tribe imploded. That's what I heard. I didn't know what happened because I never seen the whole thing. So I went on Fiji with this huge weight, like, all right, I got to do this for the people. So I told everybody, all the producers, like, hey, I'm trying to take all Black people to the end. And I did get all Black people to the end, but I couldn't get all 5 to the end. So, and it was hard to do all of that. So from that, I thought that CBS would use this as an opportunity to actually try to get more Black viewers. Like, okay, you had this opportunity. It's more modern. Social media was just kind of getting started. I said, all right, I figured I was liked well enough on the show, maybe marketable a little bit. Nothing happened. They did nothing for me. They didn't promote me in any kind of way. They had a system in place. I don't know what you went through, Vecepia, but you do all these interviews and there were country music stations, rock stations, all these kind of things like that. And I was like, I live in LA, like, what about Power 106 and like, Stevie Wonder station? It was like all these other stations that they'd even try to get me on to just try to pull more people in. Like, hey, a Black dude just won for the first time, won unanimously. And here's an opportunity, like, hey, start watching this show. So I never got into those kind of opportunities, no promotional things, no marketing things. The main thing for me, I was never invited to any finales. And I live in LA and the finale was right here. There would be other people from the past there, winners after me that would be there. Not one invitation, not one. And so that was like, okay, I didn't understand what that was about. I'd already spoke about this to Jeff before about the things we went through, because don't get it wrong. When we had an all Black finale where your only choice was to bet on Black, I had to hear it all. They were hating left and right. People hated our season. Then Jeff publicly said, he didn't like our season, which doesn't help. I thought that was socially irresponsible. So you're gonna say you hate Fiji of all seasons, where it's an all Black finale and the first African-American male wins. So you're gonna tell all the fans, I hate that season. Okay, mental note of that when I get to see him again. So, gosh, I can go on and on about this. And that's why it's like, I'm glad I get to actually speak about this, because it has been a solo voice, because now it's kind of easier for everybody to connect because of social media. But back then, we didn't have anything. You know, I'd heard of Asepia, I'd heard of Sean, but I didn't know how to reach them and things like that. And, you know, it wasn't easy to get together and have this amplified voice that we have now with Twitter and all that. So Zoom right now, we didn't have anything like that. So I definitely appreciate having this extra support. I think I did talk to, I'll tell everybody now, I did talk to one of the executive producers of the show recently and saying like, hey, this is what's going on. What are y'all gonna do? And they said they are open to listening, and they are trying to figure out a rebuttal. So I'll let you know that something is going on. They did see the letter. They did, they know about the panel. They know about that. I said, what y'all gonna do? So this is gonna happen whether you like it or not, and you got 10 days. You know, I've been straight up with them. So you got 10 days to respond. You know, it's not an attack. We're just trying to open up a conversation. Now, I did say, I do notice that there is a progression, and the show has evolved to where they do editing a little bit better, just a little bit better. It's not as bad as it used to be. Like when Sean was on there and Giuseppe and Jolanda, wrong, Ramona, like a lot of things that, you know, should have been different. Even Philip, you know, made the dude like he was crazy, and we know he's not crazy. But, and then Julia's experience, from what I read, I think that was kind of like some behind the scenes things that happened, but we don't feel protected. You know, kind of how they protect this whole Me Too movement. They had a whole episode about it. This whole season was all about it. But what about all the racial incidents that happened? On my season, we actually stood up in tribal council and said, we do not feel protected. Everybody on our tribe makes us feel invisible. This actually happened, and it all got cut out. So you tell me. Now, back then, it was a different set of producers. I will say it's different producers now, and they are more mindful, whether it's unconscious bias or conscious bias. I know CBS knows what they're doing. Some things they do on purpose, some things maybe by accident. I don't know. No more excuses at this point. You know, let's do something. We need more Black people behind the camera. We need more Black producers. We need that so we can feel like when, you know, something does happen, somebody can be culturally competent and can say, you know what, you probably shouldn't edit that way. That would be perpetuating a negative stereotype, just so you know. If not, then these random crazy scenes might happen. I applaud them for the Jamal thing. He articulated that well, but that's not the first time that ever happened. He's not the first one to even speak on camera about that. It's just, it gets to the editing room floor. So we're just trying to say like, hey, be aware, use this platform. Survivor is huge. There's no excuse to why the base is still Midwest, South, mainly white. Like, hey, you know, we did an adventure just like anybody else. Not only do we go, and I'm sorry to keep talking, so my apologies, but it's just a lot. So I'm just getting it all out. You know, we go on this adventure just like everybody else, but we don't even go with the same freedom because we're carrying something else. Like we got to code switch all the time. We got to do this, we got to do that just to make sure that we are not hurting someone's feeling, make them feel uncomfortable, you know, with the fragility. And that's part of our game. Like, and it sucks that we have to do that. So when we win or get to the end, man, that is a testament that we were actually had to be another person to be accepted once again to make it all the way to the end. And then most of the time we get voted out first or second anyway. Why? Because we look different? I don't know. Who knows what it is? Oh yeah, racism. Yeah. Okay.
Can I jump in real quick for, I'm sorry, Sean, go ahead.
No, I just wanted, I mean, he said a lot. That's why I was like, man, I wanted to make sure that everyone was interested. I was looking at the screen and I wanted to jump in there, Earl, because I wanted, after the introduction, because we're already at an hour, like time is going by. So I want to make sure that everyone gets to speak on these issues. I was with Giuseppe. I spoke on these things on the show and after. I was back then, like you said earlier, we didn't have social media, and I was getting death threats. Like when the show was over, I was getting death threats, and that was scary. Because people don't realize when you're a reality star or reality contestant, you're not a real celebrity, so you don't have agents and people. Like you go back to wherever you lived, and then people see you on the street, and it's on. And so you're looking like, yo, is this the person who sent me an email? So back then it was really, really crazy. I will say, like you, Earl, and many of you, addressing this on this season and even afterwards, I often felt like Jeff, before I go, so I run a program. I want people to know what I do before I go into my rant. I run a program in inner city or here in LA called the Time Foundation Boys to Men Enrichment Program that I started about 20 years ago after Survivor. I myself grew up without my father in Harlem, New York, and my mother did a great job of putting me in so many programs in Harlem. And ultimately, she sent me to a private boarding school in Milton, Hershey, Pennsylvania, which transformed my life. And it was it transcended a lot of things that I thought about race, because the kids that I went to school with, it was one of the only places still to this day where I saw a mosaic of races, of children, different races, backgrounds, genders, who just saw each other for who they were. And our house parents, majority were white, but you were brought in with so much love. So at a young age, I was exposed, coming from a Black family, going into a particular white situation. So I wanted to give back to the community here in LA. I came out here 20 years ago as an actor, had some, marginal success. Survivor obviously was huge, and decided to just continue to do God's work. I'm one of those people, I don't like getting credit for God's work. I don't want to be out front. I'm not trying to be the leader. And I always tell people leaders are appointed. I always tell my students that Dr. King was selected. He was in a room with elders, and they were like, because of who you are. And so I just think, listening to all of you, how beautiful we are. All of us are leaders in our family. We were leaders before they selected us. And I think our experiences needed to be heard. And that's why, to me, how this came about was so easy, but it was long overdue, because as many of you said, it would be a one-off, Ramona. Like you said, we talked, a couple of giggles, shared experiences, and it normally would be at these events. Back then, Survivor had a lot of fundraising events. That's where most of us really got to meet. We would go to these fundraising events in different parts of the country and meet other reality people and get to know each other. And that's where a lot of those bonds were solidified. And so you would think that things would change. And I felt like, to your point, Earl, with the Me Too and all these movements coming in, really holding people accountable. But what I saw, there were many aspects of the season. People would ask me, are you watching? I'd be like, no. I tapped out like many of you. I was just like, I'm not into it. And then my story's already out there. I was asked to be on All-Star, pack my stuff. No one called me. I was sitting in my house. And from that day, I was like, wow, they still playing games. So I was good, moved on with my life. But I would every now and then peek in, because I'm still close friends with Boston Rob. Actually, for my season, Giuseppe and Boston Rob would be the two people I continuously communicate. And Rob, obviously, he went on several times. And every time he was going, I'd be like, I'm only going to watch when you're on, and I'm going to wait until you make the jury. I ain't wasting my Wednesdays watching it. That's because you're my boy. But I would still look at the racial lens, and I'd go, why is Jeff interjecting himself here and not over here? And I would think about people. Let me give you an example. I remember a sister named Nayanka and Oscar. For whatever reason, they decided, that was it. They tapped out. Well, Jeff gave them a tongue lashing, and he spoke to them all kinds of crazy. But then there were other white contestants who did the same thing, and you saw more of a cajoling, more of a supportive energy that he gave. And then I would go, wow, that's weird. And then I would go season 5 with my brother Ted. It was a situation with him and his sister Gandia. I didn't think they needed to build a story around it. Both of these people, had significant others. But the huge storyline was the issue with these two grown people and what had happened. And it played up some stereotypes that Black people often have had to deal with throughout history, dealing with sexual stereotypes, aggression, and all these things. Fast forward to season 39, where, and I can't think of the man's name, and I ain't gonna throw him under the bus, but clearly as a viewer, and they chose to show, there was sexual assault going on, in which you go, here are powerful white men from the producers seeing themselves in that contestant. So they're not going to edit it in the way it should be. because they themselves are like, well, we don't want people to look at us. But let it have been a black man been accused of sexually assaulting one person or touching someone in the wrong place, that would have been the story, and that person would have been off. As you see, this person, it took an off-camera incident. And again, I'm not here to get on Jeff or the producer. It's just we all have our shared experience in this show and have had to live in the shadow. Yes, they've selected who they wanted, and I'm not here to beg anyone to be on their platform, and I don't think none of us are here. I just think for Rob, all the fans, because what makes Survivor is not CBS or the producer, it's the fans. You go to these places and fans meet you and they're like, oh my God, they get to see who you are. And the sad reality is that we often, to your point, Earl, and then I'll throw it to you, Rob, is that we're living two realities. Where people see us and we're like, oh my God, the stereotype or who I actually am. And because we don't have backup, because a lot of Black people don't really watch these shows because they don't make sure they don't market to those audiences or demographics, we're stuck in this bubble with people either like you or they don't, and it's based on these weird assumptions that you have no control over. So I just wanted to say that.
May I say something?
Well said.
May I say this, Rob? So
go for it.
From the beginning, they do this, right? So when that last meeting, that last interview in LA, when they're deciding who's going to be there, I can't remember whether it was Jeff or Mark. So both of them were in the room. I was the only Black person in that last interview. And Jeff and Mark both asked me racist questions. The one that sticks out to me the most, this is before casting. So TV normally portrays Black women as angry Black women. How would you feel if we portrayed you as an angry Black woman? Okay, so I was like Ramona, because I hadn't watched the damn show, and I should have. And I should have known what they were going to do, right? I should have known, because they told me what they were going to do. But I was naive, and I'm not going to go into, because I don't want to monopolize the time. But I explained some stuff, and if you ever want me on your show, I'm happy to come on to explain it. And there were so many things that I did on the island that were helpful with people. And the way they edited, man, I'm not whining. I'm a big girl. I put on my big girl panties every day, right? I'm a lawyer. I'm from the hood, so we know how to survive. But I can tell you, when people met me off the show, and all survivors, I used to have a charity event in Houston and invite people. Literally every survivor was like, oh my God, you're not a bitch. Like, you're really nice, which is why I can call all the people, because they know I'm nice and I'm helpful, and I want to always help the least, the last, and the lost, you know. But Survivor they have a plan, and again, I'm going to say this: I'm so thankful to Sean, and I'm incredibly thankful to you that you show us, because I'd be willing to bet you money the fans had no idea who any of us are, and that we are successful in our own rights. And we have literally been caricatured. And at least for me, there was a racial incident on Ponderosa where I was called the N-word. And I literally had to pick up a pool cue and a pool ball to defend myself against two white young men in their early 20s, because they were gonna fight me. I was a 39-year-old Black woman. Now, mind you, I'm from the hood, and I can fight. And I promise you this: if it would have been a fight, they would have known they was in a fight. But that's not my point, okay? And if I were you, I wouldn't bet against me, right? But I say this: that issue happened because of now they call them Karen moments, because of a Karen moment, and they split us up. So those of you who won and made it to the jury, y'all don't know what they do to those of us who get off real quick, fast, in a hurry. We travel and go somewhere else. And normally we travel together. They split us up and sent us to two separate places because of the racist issues. And after that, after I said, oh no, people don't get to call me the N-word and step to me and try to fight me, like physically fight me. And I was ostracized. And I'm not complaining. I've been Black all my life, right? But I'm telling you that it starts before, it's on the island, and it's afterwards, but nobody ever talks about it. And so I'm just thankful that you've allowed us to speak about it.
Anybody else want to jump in on there? Sabrina, I see your hand, and then Sharia.
Want to jump in a little bit. I have a unique perspective because I was a TV producer for 7 years prior to being a teacher and then on Survivor. So they found me. I didn't apply for the show. And I knew, and when I had to go to casting, and half of the people in the room said, the producer said, no, we love her. We don't want her because she's a former producer. They know that I knew how to play the game. You know, they knew, like, I used to manipulate things so that I can extract answers, you know? So I worked on reality TV shows, talk shows, and judge shows. So the other half of the producers knew, like, no, she's gonna play ball with us. She knows exactly what to do. She's gonna give us what we need. So I went into casting very Nene Leakes. I knew I had to go Nene Leakes, you know? So they were just like, okay, this is a short shot. She's gonna be this way on the island. I knew as soon as I got on the island, I have to shut this shit down. Like, we have enough buffoonery on TV, you know? And so when I got to the island, I very much had to be the happy Black person, the peacemaker, no ruffling of feathers. I had to turn my Blackness all the way down, because what I did, I hadn't really watched the show before, but they gave me all these CDs, these DVDs, I'm sorry, to watch. And I noticed the Black women that were on the show, they were voted out first or very early. So I said, okay, what did they do that I need to do the opposite of to last, you know? And all they did were speak their mind, be opinionated, and show how strategic they were. And for them, they were probably thinking about, okay, how can I add value to this? And I'm just like, no, they just put a target on their back. So the fact that I had to dumb myself down to fit in, to not intimidate someone, to make them feel comfortable, that was total opposite of who I was, you know? So when people met me in real life, they were just like, oh my God, like, they didn't really like me. I didn't care, but it was just amazing to see, obviously, the power of television. But two things I wanna quickly mention that happened to me. One's a microaggression, one's very overt. So the microaggression was people in my season, it's like two or three of them that kept saying, man, you speak so well. Man, you speak so, that is a microaggression. So if the white people that are listening, don't do that, because the reason why we get bothered with that is you never say that about a white child or white teenager or a white person, because it is expected, right? So when you hear an articulate Black person say, man, she speaks so well, I'm just like, why the fuck wouldn't I speak well? Like, you know, and so that just always threw me for a loop. So I said, that was a microaggression. The overt thing was a very old person on my show called me darky. Y'all, I had to, and I knew what he was doing. He was trying to get me to react. So I would act a fool and they vote me off, you know, because I wouldn't be pleasurable to be around. So I had to, at that moment, to respond versus react, you know? And at the end of the day, at that time, I was a teacher, I was a high school teacher. And I said, you know what? I can act a fool now and get quick, immediate vindication, or I can play this game too, you know? And so what I did was when the cameras weren't really heavy, I pulled him over to the side and gathered him up, because I found out what his weak spot was, and that was his wife, right? And so I dug in his ass on that perspective, you know? And that didn't need to be all televised, because I'm also an editor now. So the story gets made in the editing room. I know how to chop something up in 3 different ways, 3 different stories. And so for me, I'll leave on this note is, for me, it's all about the behind the scenes. So I've been in front of the camera, and I've spent most of the time behind the camera, whether it's been for huge, huge networks, corporations, or owning my own company in which these corporations hire me now. And for me, it's about who are the casting agents. And I'm not talking about, we don't need one. There's a minimum of 3 people that need to either be on a board, that need to be on the casting, hiring agency, and so forth, to really make change, because one is not going to feel supportive, you know? Aside from that, you guys remember the Dream Team? Y'all know who that was?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so for those, I don't know if they had them back in the day or whatever, but they were like young people, probably college age, that would come out to wherever Survivor was, and they pretty much, I mean, it was like a summer break. I would have loved to do that. And so they basically test out all the challenges, and they see if, okay, you know what, this needs to be built differently, blah, blah, blah. And these were all white kids. I'm just like, God, like, and they were mostly white men. I said, well, where are the girls? Where are the Black people? Also, too, the staff behind the scenes, there might have been 2 women that were producers. And there was one that was really attractive. And I saw how all the men were just kind of like, and I felt uncomfortable for her. So there was one Black producer, God bless Ronnie's soul, you know, and I'll leave on this note. I happened to make it to the final. So there was one challenge we won, and someone picked me, and we were able to go on like this yacht, get a meal, take a shower. Because Ronnie was a Black producer, y'all see how my afro was like way bigger than this, right? So that brother knew a Black woman was on the show, and they stock up stuff and they bring with them. It brought me to tears to know I walked in the shower and they had to take off the labels because they can't have Pantene and all that. He had Carol's Daughter shampoo waiting for me, and I knew it was Carol's Daughter. Carol's Daughter is a Black-owned shampoo line or whatever. That brought me to tears. That is one of the most memorable things that someone has ever done for me, because he knew my hair was a mess. Everybody's hair was a mess, but to have white shampoo versus Black shampoo, there's a difference. Those are the little things that matter, okay? But he was one brother on that show. I'm gonna leave on that note.
You want to go to Sharia? She had a hand. That was beautiful, Sabrina. You just laid it out. So if whoever's listening, there's no shadow of a doubt, in front or behind the scenes, things that need to be changed. Now, thank you, sister. Appreciate that. Sharia, I saw your hand up.
Yes, because I wanted to kind of speak a little bit. I gave a general intro, and I'm glad I get to talk after Sabrina, because what's interesting is I was on season 15. And so during that time, someone else mentioned social media wasn't like it is now. So Facebook, I think, was just kind of starting around that time. So we didn't have the connection like we all do now, right? To be able to reach out to each other. And I remember Earl and Bobby reached out to me, and different people, but I remember Sabrina finished her season and I immediately reached out to her to make that connection. And so we've met several times and being able to talk about our experience. But the first thing I go back to is I did watch Survivor, but I never went out to be on Survivor. Someone reached out to me, and I remember the email that came across that said they're looking for Black girls, which meant they hadn't filled their one spot yet. I'll never forget that. And I was very, very naive to going out to the show. I watched it, but I wasn't into it, with everything that was happening with it. So I'll never forget going to LA, and you guys will remember this when you're going to your interviews and you can't talk to anybody. And you're looking around and I see one person by themselves. I see 2 people and I realize, oh, they were for Amazing Race. People who were by themselves were for Survivor. And I said, oh, there's another Black girl, Black guys. Oh, that's my competition. That's what I remember thinking to myself. And I remember you fill in that one role. And so, of course, fast forward, they send me out there and, they tell you what to wear, right? And so there's some incidents I remember where they sat me down and down to my underwear is what they told me I was going to wear. And I remember begging them to give me another pair. And I remember saying, I'm Black. And when certain things grow and happen, you're going to be able to see everything on camera. They said, no, this is what you will wear. And Sabrina, you kind of alluded to this. I remember going out saying, you can't be that Black girl who goes off. You cannot be that Black girl. I was a teacher at the time, just like Sabrina was. So I had kids who were looking up to me. Can't be that Black girl. And when people even ask me, what was so hard about Survivor, I always tell them the first few days for me was the hardest, because you're out there with people you probably would never meet in normal life. You don't know yet what you have in common with them, and you're just out of your element. And at that time, I had to talk myself into actually playing the game. And I remember on day 3, then day 6, I was like, oh, you could do this. You could do this. And y'all, I kicked ass in the challenges. I kicked ass in the challenges. But what they showed was someone who was lazy. And they said that on the show. Not to mention I was saving my energy so we could win in the challenges, which we did. So let's make that clear. But again, naive to these things that happened during my time. And then as I think back and even talking to other Black survivors, this is something that it's not new to us. We've always had to play down who we are, to make other people happy and to make them feel a certain type of way. And in my later years, I was 26 at that time, you know, I've always said to myself, this is something I will not do. I speak up when I see things that are wrong. You know, I defend people when they need to be defended, but I also am a Black woman. I'm not a person of color, because that's a lot of people. I'm Black. You're not going to lump me in, and I won't fill a role because somebody wants me to fill a role. I'm going to be who I am. I'm going to do what I do because that's who's in me, but I will never let someone tell me to be someone else because it makes them feel comfortable. So, you know, I'm just happy to be able to be amongst these people. And for those that are listening, I mean, clearly you see the dynamic things that everyone on this panel are doing. And, you know, when I speak because my mother taught me how to speak. I'm educated, and not because I'm supposed to be that girl. Like you said, you know, why wouldn't I be articulate? Why wouldn't I be? Because that's who I am. That's what I was raised to be, the people I'm around. So I'm happy to be in the company of people like you all, and happy that we have a platform to be able to continue to speak, and happy to continue to connect with you all.
Hey, Rob.
Yes, Sean.
I see Philip has his hand up. Is there anything that we need to do on this platform, or that you want to throw in, and then we can go right to Phil afterwards? I just want to make sure.
Sure. I mean, I think that what's so great about having this conversation right now is that because of the coronavirus, that normally Survivor would have already filmed the season, that season 41 would have already been filmed, and they've been on to filming season 42 already. And I think that what is the really, you know, unique opportunity that because of, you know, the terrible pandemic, that they haven't been able to shoot, that Survivor does have an opportunity to implement a lot of the things that people are talking about. I know that there is the petition that was launched this week, which is going around, and people should definitely take a look at. And I think that there are a lot of these stories that you guys have told us, and I think that there are a lot of opportunities to create changes in the production as well.
Rob, quick question. What do you think would happen if, let's say there were 20 survivors on the next season, 18 were Black, and then there's one white woman, one white man?
Yeah. Well,
how do you think America would respond?
Oh, okay. I thought we were talking about this.
Speak for America. I know how I respond.
Yeah.
Great question. Because
Shit.
that's what we deal with every day.
Popcorn. That's what it is. And what you just said, Sabrina, that's perfect. Because that's exactly what we're talking about. And so the conversations that we're having, whether it's in the military or the conversations that I'm having at our company, you know, we're still talking about opportunity, because opportunity cuts through bullshit. Really, at the end of the day, it does. And the frustrating piece of it that all of us understand so well is when you are out there, all you want to be is a contestant. You just want to be like, hey man, let me just come play. Let me just play this game. Mm-hmm. But the fact is that in lightning speed, you are made aware that you are uniquely different from everybody else, to the point that you have to literally check yourself. That is survival type shit. That is the kind of stuff you do. If I threw each and every one of you in the jungle with a knife and is like, all right, you on your own, that's the same feeling you have when you play this game. You look around and you like, oh yeah, same team. Like, you don't feel like you on the same team. So it's about opportunity. And the reality is that, and you can look across different industries, you can look across, you know, different everything. People are talking about opportunity, just plain and simple, having a seat at the table, because then it washes away all of that. You know, like Yolanda was saying, same thing. I remember sitting in that final interview, and it was Mark and Craig Pelesian, and then this sea of CBS people, and I don't think I could find a Black face in there. And so how do we, at that point, you're like, nobody that's making the decisions looks like us. If the people in casting don't look like us, then how can we expect that this game, I mean, the fact that Earl and V, they won this game in spite of everything else. So I think that's the challenge that people don't understand. I am aware every single second of every day that I am not just an officer in the United States Army. I am a commander of a unit. I am a Black officer in the United States Army. I feel that every second of every day. And when I try and explain that to my peers, they try the, oh, well, we're all, it's like, no, we're not, because the numbers still show that I am in many ways not the norm. And until the numbers change, until we get to a place where the number of African-American field grade officers that we have and the number of African-American general, when that stuff starts to change, then we'll see it. Les Moonves, for everything that he did, if that was a Black man, no way you walk away with the financial package he got. Everybody tracking on what Les did, right? Does everybody who don't know who Les is, if you don't, you can raise your hand. So everybody know who Les is. Les Moonves, like president of CBS, man.
Yeah.
For many years.
And this, yes. Many years. And this dude was doing some skullduggery. Yeah. and flat out walked out the door with millions.
Yeah.
But again, it just goes back to the frustration of, man, when the people at the table, you don't have a seat, none of this matters. And they'll throw everything. Man, I heard this, and I'll leave it at this. And this was the one that blew me away. And I remember I was talking to somebody at our finale, and I was like, yo, man, it was like, you had 2 Black people. Like, why do y'all? It was like, well, Black people only make up like 12.5% of the population. And I was just like, I literally remember thinking like, man, do not swing at the finale, drink this drink, and step off. And it was just that. And they said that, and I don't think it was them being racist. It was just in their mind, like, this is the why we do it. Like, this is the justification for it all. That's how you end up, Earl, on rock stations and country stations, because they still hold on to them demographics of Black people make up this percent, and they don't with the show and all that other, and it's all garbage.
Hey, let me ask you guys this question. I want to ask this question to everyone real quick. When you were out there on your island and knowing that whether you had one other Black person or 2 Black people, how many times did you feel kind of uncomfortable to go and sit and have a long, extended conversation with another Black person? Did any of you guys ever feel like, we've been talking too long, we better kind of separate this before they start saying, look at them, they're over there together, what are they doing? And on our season, Sean and I would sit and we'd have these conversations, and we talked about racism, but we were talking about racism to the point of, after the editing, after the show comes on, how are they going to look at us? How are they going to portray us? That was our conversations. But it ended up getting flipped and brought back to the other castmates and saying, what do you think about Sean and Vecepia talking about race and involving race in this? And it just turned. And then, social media was very minimal at that time, but it definitely came out in that. And people were like, how dare them talk about racism? Nobody else has talked about it, but that's our life. We are always thinking ahead. I mean, I love the commercials that they have on television right now, where they're literally showing a Black mother giving the keys to her daughter and saying, be careful while you're driving down the street. If you see a cop, watch out, watch your back. You got your phone, don't put your hoodie on. And these are real conversations that we have in our lifetime. And if people would take the time to come and sit and listen to the conversation, they would understand where we're coming from and not necessarily trying to force something negative out. And that was our problem. I couldn't stand that when I saw it edited.
And if Survivor would not contribute to the caricature of us, right? Because a lot of white people, who are the people whose minds and hearts we need to touch, if Survivor would portray us not as monolithic and not these negative stereotypes, then perhaps the white people that watch Survivor would be like, oh, they're just like us. but instead Survivor perpetuates it. And why is that important to us? I'm the mother of a Black child. And even though my child is now 6'4", 210 with a bunch of muscles and incredibly intelligent, third-year law student, I have not had a good night's sleep since my son was in middle school and started hanging out with his friends after dark. And the only times my son has had guns pulled on him have been by the police, before I got elected and even after I got elected. So social status doesn't save our kids from that. And on at least 2 occasions, I knew that the police were encountering my son and the phone went dead. And for 3 hours, I didn't know if my son was alive or dead, right? And so I say that to say this. It would be so powerful if Survivor and TV in general would show us like we're just like you, so that you can start changing people's minds. That is why this is important to us, because it literally could save the lives of our children generally and my son specifically.
I wanted to
jump in. Bob, if I could interject,
because I raised my hand about.
Oh, go ahead, Philip, and I'll come back after you.
Yes, because I wanted to point out something about my season, and I don't know if anyone else experienced this, but because of my training as a federal agent and my ability to read a room, that was the skill I had. Oftentimes I would do what's called an adverse subject interview. That's where we thought we'd done something, but we hadn't been able to corroborate it some other way. And I'd be the guy that you'd be interviewing with as the last stage before we decided whether or not we were going to give you a security clearance. So when I go out to Survivor the first time I play, within 48 hours, and I believe this is why the edit I can't prove this, but I'm going to tell you something. I confronted the producers in the game and said, this is when I did probably my second or third interview with them. And I said, what the hell is this? You brought me out here to play a game. You tell me I got a shot at $1 million. But isn't it true? All the people that are already out here in my tribe are already in love with this guy. Did you ask them before they got out here, who's your favorite player? And I'll never forget, her name was Rena. I don't remember her last name, the person who would do the interview with me, one of the producers. And she raised her glasses. First time I got to see her eyes, she was always in dark shades. She raises her glasses. She looks at me and she said, so what are you going to do? Are you going to quit? And that was when I decided I was going to become the specialist. And the specialist was, I figured out at that moment, the only person I had to convince to do anything in that game, since they were already in love with Rob, was him. And I said, if I can give him an idea that will make him decide that he's going to keep me in this game, I don't have to worry about any of them. And I can speak my mind and I can say whatever I want to say when they confront me or do anything they want to do. So what happened was I go to Rob, and I'm sure every one of you have heard this expression before. I said to him, I said, you know, my mama told me that 20% of something is better than a whole lot of nothing. And when I look at all these people out here, a lot of them are going home with nothing. You've played this game 4 times and you never won. You know why? Because there's someone like me who's intelligent, figures out that you're one of the guys that needs to go home. And so you've gone home. But I got good news for you. I'm going to help you. And he said, how? I said, watch me. And all I had to do at that point was, if you go back and watch that first season, which I felt like I never really got credit for, was every time I picked an argument with someone, after we lost a challenge, it would always be the appropriate person. The person that day who was lazy, who didn't do something, or when all I had to do was say, hey, you know, when everybody else went out and got the wood and the fire was out, you stayed back in camp. And then what would happen is they'd call me for that confessional. I would leave. That person would then begin to scramble with them. And Rob would set up the perfect blindside, because he would tell that person, I saw what Shepard just did. We're going to send that SOB home. They would relax. I'd come back. I'd give a song and dance about, I know it's my turn. I'm going home. I was out of line. The person would feel very comfortable, even more so. And then we'd go to tribal, and that person would be one of the people that would go home. I also felt that in that first season that Francesca and I were deliberately brought into that game to be at odds with each other, because they made sure that the very first, as soon as the game started off, the girls went off on something by themselves and the guys stayed back in camp. And it was at that moment that she said something to them, and they all came back and said something to me about what she said. And they set that dynamic up. And I feel that like what we've already heard today, that a lot of the editing process that goes on and the storyboard, I want to see people in there on the storyboard when the storyboard's being developed for that show, because as you know, if any of you remember, there's a lot of times when they have a camera and the person is speaking to it, and after they see something, they'll say, that's episode 6. That's for episode 6. It'll be called The Redheaded Stepchild. And they'll name it. They'll tell you what it is, and you hear it, and it'll be what you said. I learned that even more so the second time I played. And so I realized, you know, I was a little better about it the second time because I realized what they were doing. But the first time, the reason I got to be this bigger than life character, because I knew I wasn't going anywhere, because I could see that they really set this game up for this guy, Boston Rob, to win. They brought people out there who were already in love with him, and they put Russell in a tribe where everybody already hated him. And so he was, you know, sent home right away. So it's great to hear all of you speak about it, you know, from your experiences, and especially when you got home. The last thing I want to talk about is when I got back, because of the edit and how severe it was and the interactive. And as you all may not recall, but Ellen DeGeneres talked about me. I was the lead-in of The Soup for 6 months. If you ever go back and watch any episode of The Soup, when I was on, it was the lead-in. On Entertainment Weekly, I was called the craziest person. All that went on full-time, nonstop. And I actually developed something that I actually saw the show psychologist for a number of years. I've never revealed this publicly before, but I'm going to tell you, I developed something called depersonalization. It's where you kind of like lose your identity a little bit. You're not sure who you are for a while. And so she worked with me. And then ultimately, I got to see another psychologist who actually helped me break that cycle of identifying myself based on that edit. And so one of the things is, I've never watched a season of Survivor. I would love, that was one of the things that I feel so angry about at times. It's like, you took that away from me. The possibility that I might be, you know, I've done a lot of tweeting and I have a big social media platform, and yet I rarely talk about Survivor because I felt like they took that away from me, that joy that other people get to have. But each of us probably have our own scenario. I've already heard that today. And that's, you know, that was because of that edit was so severe in terms of the way they represented me. And at no time in the future have they come back to try to clarify, you know, something about me, about that they know to be true. I live like less than a quarter of a mile from Lynn Spillman. My girlfriend lived 2 doors down from her. These are multi-million-dollar homes. But yet you would think from my edit that I'm some nut job that they, you know, that they ran with, and they perpetuated that year over year, year over year. And so,
Philip, can I jump in real quick? Just real quick, because as you see, and I'm gonna go to you, Ted. This is a cathartic thing because we just jumping in and everybody's going in with passionate stories. And as you see, this could be probably a 3-4 hour thing. But because we are kind of time constrained and I want to get to Ted, and then I want to tie this into what's happening in the world and our perspective of since Survivor. Because I don't want people to think our whole lives is Survivor. And even though, like you said, Philip, there's a lot of pain and, you know, things going on that emotionally, and shout out to Dr. Liza, who was one of the therapists on the show, that after, and I don't know how long she stayed on, but when we were there, you sat down with Dr. Liza to kind of detox from that experience. But in general, even after that, many of us have things that we've never been able to deal with. And so as you see, as I'm listening to everybody, I'm like, part of me, like, I don't want to interject, and I know Rob and people, we're all kind of, so I hear you, man. Like, we could be here for hours because we've never had a platform to just go in. What I do want to say, and Ted, I'm going to throw it to you so you can say, after Ted, I want us to come full circle to bring it in. How does our collective experience, let's bring it up to what's happening now, not just with the numbers that show that we're the highest number of COVID-19, but also the protests that follow. Because to your point, Clarence, I think you said, when people use stats, those can be manipulated to whatever they want. So when people go, the only 12% of the population only use 2 people. But then how come we make up the highest number of people locked up in jail? How come we get the highest numbers when you're determining factors of life where the qualities are good? We're at the low end if we're only 12%. So you got to be careful when people use it. And that feeling probably is something that we all experience when people try to throw numbers that really don't justify. So Ted, jump on in here, and then after Ted, everybody start thinking about what's going on in society. So go ahead, Ted, sorry.
Thanks, Sean. I appreciate that. More so for Rob and T-Bird, right? And as well as any other allies that we have out there that's listening to this. What you're hearing, very similar to the George Floyd incidents. People would react and say, oh my gosh, people are rioting, they're looting, they're doing all these other activities. Similar to the stories that you're hearing now, you're hearing the symptoms of a deeper problem. And what we need to do is really just, these stories hopefully will help you peel the onion to get to the root cause of the problem. So for example, we're talking about editing, right? How could we expect us to be edited in a fair and equitable way when there's no one in the room that has our experience? How could we expect people to bring us back on the show, share the common experience and the rewards of Survivor, when there's no one else that really understands us as a people? So my point is that, I mean, these stories are beautiful. I even experienced, some issues on my season. Just real quick, my issue was that after I got voted off, people were coming to me and saying, you know what? There was a person on your show, Clay specifically, kept saying that we can't let this nigga win Survivor. And so for me, I decided to address that issue head on because I knew I had one more chance to address that issue, which was my finale speech. So I spoke about racism, but when I wrote my speech and Jeff looked at it, they said, well, I don't know if you really want to do that because it may be too controversial, or, you may bring that up, but it may be perceived as an angry Black man because no one knows, what you're talking about. So I opted to say, well, hey, I'm going to say it anyway, because for me, it wasn't about exposure. It wasn't about, trying to, make other people feel comfortable. To me, I believe racism and biases is just like a roach. It'll thrive in darkness and behind the scenes. But as soon as you shine that light on it, oh my gosh, it's easily killed, if you will. So that was my focus and my intent. So I guess at the end of the day, just to help our allies, right? There's an old African Zulu greeting called Sarabona. And really all it means is that we see your personality, we see your humanity, we see your dignity and your respect. And at the end of the day, toward understanding the Black experience, all we want our allies to do is just to reach a level of Sarabona. Simply put, we just want to be seen, we want to be understood, and we want to be respected just like anyone else. And that's all we're trying to do. And I hope you guys are absorbing these stories, because I think these are very, very important, because us as Black people, we can't ask for allies to help us in this journey, in this fight, if they don't understand our perspective of where we're coming from. So I respect you, Rob, T-Bird, all the other allies that are out there, where we're actually going to address this racism, and hopefully we can move away from CBS standing for conscious biases survive to a more collective environment where we all can thrive.
Hey, Sean, I want to help transition, I think, into what's going on today. So I think it's very important, because I used to work with a lot of teenagers who are huge demographics of who watch the show. And it comes down to the lack of history, or people are very short-sighted. They don't remember history. And people, oh my God, they're out there looting. It's like, this country was built off looting. It was built off, who do you think came over here and took everything? The Boston Tea Party was the biggest looting thing. So that quickly to forget about that. Oh, when the Patriots or the Eagles lose a Super Bowl, there's destruction of a city. You don't hear that perspective, And so I think it comes down to two things I want people to understand is, when we talk about white privilege, which is based from like white supremacy, it's an ideology, right? And so anybody can withhold that ideology, Black people, white people, Hispanic people, and so forth. But it comes down to knowing what white privilege is. And a lot of people don't know that. Simply all white privilege is we're not saying that you've never had a tough time in your life. We're saying the tough moments in your life have never been because of your skin. That's all we're saying, And so for them to step back and listen, and to know that everything that's happening now, whether or not it's healthcare disparity, from Julia and Ramona can talk about that, education disparity, Sharia can talk about that, is social justice and economics will always go hand in hand. the communities that are generally over policed are the poor populations. Why perhaps are they poor? The lack of capital that can come into these communities. I walk in the bank with a certain credit score. My white counterpart can walk into the bank with a certain credit score. The same thing on paper. I walk into a bank and there is a fear in the back of my mind, I might not get this business loan. Does the white person even think of that? You know, so the lack of cash flow that will start these small businesses, it all ties in together. The whole thing with taxes and how wealth is distributed. Education budget is all about the taxes within the neighborhoods. Okay, so it's all tied in together. And so when the oppressed are oppressed for so long, the top is going to explode. So I don't, people just say, oh my God, why are they looting? I understand. So for me, I'm about let this whole motherfucker bottom the fuck out. Excuse my language. Because it's gonna get way crazier before it gets better. And so for over these period of years, because you have benefited from your ancestors who use our ancestors to plot your land and so forth, you have benefited and you know, had a better life than what perhaps we would have. So all of these things play into part, and also the visual aspect of it. When we're on television and we only get portrayed a certain kind of way, these people are looking at it. Media is the #1 weapon in the world. And so it is our duty as on-air people to challenge the people behind the scenes, not only to cast other people, but we need to change behind the scenes. I'm very big more on corporate structure. And just because 1 or 2 people have made it behind the scenes doesn't mean that the community has, you know, because they'll be quick to say, oh, you've had Obama as president. Okay, that's cool. But as a community, you're still, this is systematic thing is ridiculous. But I am ranting now.
I want to go to Julia, you know, and hear her voice, but I did want to say, you know, if you don't understand white supremacy, everything else will confuse you. And I think what people don't realize is the history of this country, many people do not know. So their context and reference is always limited. And even the ones that do know, here's where that willful ignorance steps in, where you know, but you're going to act like you don't know. And so race is the elephant in the room. It's like, we could talk about anything, but the history of race in this country, when you're Black, you always have to second guess, how is it gonna make other people feel? And I've even said, sometimes it's so much that your anxiety about it may not even be race, but you're so used to dealing through that lens, and there's no safe landing space for you to identify that then, to Philip's point earlier, is that you then get labeled crazy, right? Then things start happening, and you see people in our society, from the Colin Ferguson to his brother out here in LA who was an LAPD officer, when they start going left and start going crazy because of the racism they dealt with, they just get dismissed, and no one reads their manifesto, no one sees the trajectory of where they started and where they ended. So I do think understanding the history of this country will allow folks to be honest. But Julia, I want you to jump on. Talk about from the medical field and just whatever.
Right. I'm going to have a whole podcast with Rob, so I'm going to have that opportunity. So I was more so here to show my face and support and listen. But I do want to say one thing, especially as somebody who's newer school survivor, so only 2 seasons ago. And I do want to push back that, you know, on this notion of, but there's been progress. I argue that there has not been nearly enough. After 40 seasons and 20 years of this show being on the air, I was on a season with 2 Black people separated on different islands. I was one Black woman. He was one Black male. He was booted early and he couldn't swim, which was the focus of his storyline. And then I was there to fend for myself and survive and be the one, you know? So I definitely want to push back that there has not been enough change. There has not been enough progress. And we know the game of Survivor it's bubble, but it's also very reflective, and it mirrors the world and the life and the lives in which we live. So to think that race isn't part of that conversation is absolutely ridiculous. And I think we need to keep that in mind, that on this game and on this social experiment, that our identities matter, you know? So like we are out there and we're trying to balance our identities and being also a castaway. So I do think that, you know, Survivor has come a long way, but it has a lot more work to do. And this panel has been reflective of that. Just alone, these people here have spoken on not only overt, but covert racism within the Survivor community, both behind the scenes and very upfront. So I think that shows you that there has not been nearly as much work done. So yeah, with that, I think that, you know, we lend our voices to the cause, to the support, to the efforts that CBS or Survivor may be looking to make, and that they should very well be making, because in my opinion, they're losing out on a lot of viewership and a lot of money by not tapping into our network, which is the Black community and Black viewers who would tune into this show and see those people here on the screen play the game that they love if there were more of us on it, so, and represented in positive ways. So I just want to leave off on that. I thank you all. And Rob, I can't wait to talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah, and Julie, could you also just give a plug for the panel that's coming up on Friday also?
Yeah, sure. So, and Sharia, fact check me if I'm wrong, but so we have a panel on Friday. It's called Tribes and Tribulations. It will consist of Ramona, Russ Swan, Wendell Holland, myself, Jamal Shipman, and Jatia Hart. So we are going to,
and Bryce
Isaiah, yes, of course. So 7 of us total, and we are going to speak on everything, kind of the reality television and the intersection with race, and just all of that, kind of a lot of what we're discussing here, and talking about like next steps moving forward and all of that. So that will be, I think, 7:30. I'll post the link on my Twitter. If anybody doesn't have it, it's going to be a live stream similar to this, in which you could tune in.
That's awesome, man. That you guys are doing.
That's going to be cool.
I wanted to say that I feel like, Julia, we're passing the baton on to you guys to keep this thing moving forward. Many of us are elders, we've moved on. I know my son, to the point, I would only want to go back if it was like a parent-son thing, because my son has said, Dad, I would love to finish what they didn't let you finish. And so my thing is, I work with the youth throughout the country. A lot of my work, I just I keep low, because I feel like when you're a Black man and you're making strides, you have a target on your back. Not always when you're doing negative, when you're doing positive. And so sometimes I just like to be on the low, and I love with the youth. I love the next generation, how you guys jump on stuff and y'all get on it. I do want to say that, you know, there was a book, the Willie Lynch book, and Syndrome, and it goes into, you know, his whole thing. This isn't about any of the audience. This is for you guys in here and the audience. Do not ever let people separate us based on these little differences. Because many a times in our history, when we've made strides, it's always been ego, and the light skin versus dark skin, and the older versus the younger. That Willie Lynch thing is real, in which people start getting pitted, right? So then we start getting pitted, and what I was saying is what Malcolm X always said: we don't catch hell because we're Republican or Democrat, or you're gay or you're straight. We catch hell because we're Black, right? And after that, that doesn't mean under that whatever it is that you identify, you don't have a story. I just know that from the time we were brought here, the thing that has stopped revolt and revolution and the forward-moving progress has been ego and infighting. I just want to say publicly, as you see a lot of old school players on here, and people may wonder where everybody is, it's a matter of scheduling and just people getting it in. But know that we speak as a collective voice, unified. As you see, everyone's coming from different perspectives. We all express ourselves differently, but at the end of the day, we all have something to say. And that's one thing that CBS has not allowed, and definitely Survivor. As we see, there was a guy, a Japanese-American executive. Actually, he was the one that kind of helped usher Survivor. I think his name was Gen Maynard. And there's another sister named Whitney Davis, I believe. They have current lawsuits, and I don't know how it went, but that lets you know at the highest level. And then we hear recently at ABC with comments made about Robin Roberts, and comments made about Sunny Hostin, her last name. But we see that this isn't just a Survivor thing. This is, to your point, Sabrina, a systemic thing that is happening. So racism is systemic. It's not about you name calling or me complaining. It's about what we saw in Central Park, that if a white woman just calls and says, I feel threatened, the cavalry is coming. And when you're black, you know that means you have a system that backs you. Whereas if you black, if you call the police, they might come for you and you're the one calling. So I would like for these conversations to continue. Like I said, this is what allyship looks like. Rob was generous to lend us a platform to just go all in. You see people on here cussing. We in here, Sabrina drinking wine. You know, we just in here.
Patron.
Hey, look, right. Patron.
Sabrina.
You know,
let me get a little of that.
Look, it's for folks, everybody's background. For people that want to know what allyship is, not wearing a shirt. It's not just marching. It's allowing that privilege to help others level the playing field so that we have equity and so that people can continue that. So,
hey, Sean, real quick. Hey, let me say this too, because I think it's everybody here has been successful in spite of. And I think that's what the audience needs to understand, that we're trying to tell you. We're not like, and you said it best, man, it's about education. Everyone on this panel has had to be successful in spite of. And that is why people are talking about, when they talk about things like having a 400-year head start, that's what they're saying. All we want is to be able to get to a day where you have a cast of people and you turn on Survivor and it's 18 people and 9 of them are black, to Sharia's point and Sabrina's point, Ramona's point, where it don't even matter. And that's change and that's progress. And I think we have to look and say, you know, I'm so excited, because if I look, man, there was a time when a black man couldn't be in Major League Baseball. Then there was a lot of time when the black man couldn't be, they didn't want him to be a starting pitcher. Then they didn't want him to manage, and they didn't want him to do so. In every aspect, there is opportunities for growth. And I think at some point we're going to turn on Survivor. One day, I'm hopeful, and you're going to have a cast, and half of that cast will be black, and nobody will care. It'll just be, oh, it's Survivor. Because until then, until you have that ability to look and really stop with the what I call segmentation of one of us here, one of us there, you will never understand. Like, what we're trying to explain, man, is how that shit makes us feel. And that is why we are in this thing, to bring this thing all together. George Floyd is dead because of the fact that that police force is not representative. So again, it just goes back to opportunity solves all of this shit. Give us our seat at the table.
Well, we have to. I have to give.
You say one thing,
right?
We want to wrap it up and let everybody get their last. We're going to wrap it up and let everybody get their last word. So Earl, was that you that just jumped in? I see your hand.
Yeah.
So how about we do this? Everybody, let's kind of wrap this up. This is, Rob said he's going to continue this. Plus, we have the podcast with Julia on Friday, and then the series. So we're moving this ball along, and I feel like we're going to make progress. And I, contrary to what people believe, and I'll get you, Survivor fans are smart. They get it, a lot of them. And I can't speak for the lot, but some of them diehards, when you meet them and you get to talk to them, you realize that they were judging you through a lens that they only knew. And so I think these kind of discussions allow those fans in America to see we're more than those character types and stereotypes and edited tropes that we see. So in closing, we'll go with Earl, he had his hand, and then we can go in order. From my screen, it'll go to you, Sharia, and then we'll kind of let everybody get their last closing remarks, and then Rob, you and T-Bird can put the staple on it, and then till the next one. So Earl, go on in and
yes, thank you, Sean. It was great hearing
brother.
everybody's perspective and everyone's story about this. I just propose one thing. I always hear the excuse that Survivor is a microcosm of society, it's a reflection of society, to justify the percentages on how we have 1 or 2 of this race, 1 or 2 of that, and this, and so on and so on. But Survivor is not real. So why can't Survivor be a utopia? Make it how it should be. You have this big platform. How about you just make it all equal? They
Yeah.
tried that season 13, made it all equal. Guess who made it to the end? 2 Asians and a Latin. They said, maybe that was a fluke. Let's try it again. So they did it my season. Everybody's equal again. 5 of everything. All Black made it to the end. Interesting. When it's all equal, look what happens. That's interesting. I'm wondering, is there fear of equality on the show that you have control? It doesn't have to mimic what society is. You can make it an even playing field for everyone. We're all on an island. We're all trying to figure it out. We're all trying to get to the end. So you did that 2 seasons in a row where it was equal and all minorities made it to the end. Basically, we've been trained to survive anyway. So then you stopped all of that. You said, we're not letting this happen again. And it has not been like that since. Since at all, where it's been equal. So what is the fear of that equality? That's your reflection of society. That's all I want to say. I got to have been on my kid.
Let's give him I'm gonna go to you, but I would say that white privilege is such a thing that equality feels like oppression, for some, where leveling the playing field almost feels like oppression to people who are so used to being in those positions. And so when you're catering to an audience that is predominantly white and are used to seeing themselves, those executives are not going to change. So to your point, hopefully they'll watch the ball rolling, and with everything going on in society, start leveling the control so that we can then truly see, like to your point, Sharia, bring us home.
Right. I'm going to keep it short and sweet and just say, for those that are allies, use the color of your skin to now do what an ally does. And if there was no other time, the time is now to do that. And I'm going to leave it at that. This is when now you need to show up.
No doubt. Ted, any last closing remarks?
Yeah, I think Sharia hit a home run. All I would just add to that is, especially to the allies, you can see, you're not blind. What we do as African Americans, as Black people, we take inventory of who's in the room. When we step in the room, the first thing we do, we take inventory. Does anyone look like us? Is this environment a truly diverse environment? You have the same set of eyes that we do. Take inventory and then ask yourself, is this a reflection of the community and the world in which we live? If you're in a room with majority whites and this supposedly is a representation of society, know that that's wrong. Know that we need more representation. So the net is, I would say, take inventory. Allies, we need you, but it's also time for you to step up and do your part. So this way, together, we can make this thing work.
Sabrina.
And I thank you, Sean and Rob, for setting this platform up for us to reflect.
I love you, brother. You know what it is.
Hey, love you too, bro.
Real quick, just the changes that I need for people to be patient. The things that we're doing now may not be for us. It may be for our kids. And so just be patient along this marathon. But to the allies, okay? If you have called up your Black friends before you have called up 5 of your white friends, go back to the drawing board, okay? Don't exhaust me or other people. You know the situation, get your people together, Google stuff, what can you do? Then bring that to help, okay? And occupy the space you're in. So if you're the white soccer mom with 3 kids, and maybe there are 3 Black kids at your school, stand up, even if your voice is shaking, stand up at the end of that PTA meeting and say, what are we doing for Black History Month? What are we doing for Mexican History Month? Make sure that is in the curriculum. I'm all about education and history and getting all the vantage points through history. So that's it.
Thank you, Sabrina. Julia, any parting words that you have?
I guess just one last word, and this goes for whether in the game of Survivor and just in life, when Black people or people of color speak up on their experiences, do not negate them, do not invalidate them, listen to them, believe them in the same way you would, a victim of the Me Too movement. Racism is felt by us, it's not felt by you, so it's not on you to challenge us of what our experience or our sentiments around it are. So that's especially to the fans of Survivor. Like, I love you guys are Survivor, but please realize that you are watching a show, you are watching a heavily edited show. And when survivors speak up on their experiences, they're speaking up because they have lived those experiences. So please always keep that in mind in life.
Thank you, Julia. And don't forget, guys, Friday, Julia is going to be hosting an incredible panel, continuing this conversation. We want to make sure this is not a one-off that people go, well, that was a nice thing. And then, so I look forward to that as well. T Black, going you, brother.
Man, Survivor has given me everything. Survivor literally paved the path to financial independence, to growth, to my experiences in fields I would have never gotten into, ultimately even into the military. But at the same time, I think it is just time for change. As generic as that is, you know, we are there. It is a game, and the game should be such that you step there, you should never feel uncomfortable. If someone is playing this game and the very first thing that they think is that they are uncomfortable, then they are feeling the same thing that, you know, you have the only Black cop working the night shift in Minneapolis feels, or the only, you know, CEO, Black CEO, or the only Black doctor at her hospital, or the only, like, we got to get past this segmentation where it's okay to just have a few of us here and a few of us there. And once we get there, and I think we will get there, and like Sabrina said, it won't be today, it won't be tomorrow, maybe it'll be our kids' kids. I'm really excited for that day to come. And I will just say this too. At some point, somebody is going to have to go to war about getting V. V deserves to be back on this damn show. She's the only winner, I think, that hasn't been back. And I don't know if that's accurate or not, but man, V deserves it. And it's a whole separate show we can get into about how they play their favorites and who get to go back. Your boy Boston Rob live on the damn show. But no, man, V get to go back. Like, and that's no disrespect to Rob, but if he did have disrespect on it, I'd just beat his ass. So I ain't really worried about it. But I mean, V deserve to go back. It's just flat out. And, you know, it's just one of those things where, man, it's just, you know, we shouldn't even have to play these silly ass games. But
no pun intended. Clarence, you just turned this into Love and Hip Hop reunion. Brother then just brought it all the way back. Now people gonna be like, this Love and Hip Hop. So I'm gonna go to my sister V. No, because you're a wild dude. But I want to give it to my sister V.
So I love the game of Survivor. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I know we're lagging. I just, you know, I always want to tell people how much I love you before we talk about anything, because our bond is way beyond this game. Is way so. Even as we're all on here, folks, I want y'all to know, Giuseppe and I we started and finished together on an island that was the worst season out of Jeff's own mouth in terms of terrain, in terms of the buzz. We were never given food. We were the first season where we weren't given anything. So she did not win. She won on the season where the circumstances were the worst.
Right.
And to not have been highlighted, brought back, spoken of, speaks to everything we're saying. If no one understands nothing in these 2 hours, understand that imagine having golf without Tiger Woods or basketball without Jordan. Giuseppe, to me, is one of the greatest to ever do it, because she did it when it wasn't snack giving and food and social media where you can kind of get people behind you at the time. So I just want to blow smoke up your butt, girl, like I always do, and give it to you to close out.
Yeah, I love the game Survivor. I've loved it from the very first season, and I haven't missed a season. But it is hurtful to know, as the only African-American woman to win Survivor, that not only have I not been asked to come and play again, but I've never been called. So it's one thing never been given the option to say, no, I'm good, I don't want to go. but I've never even been given that option. And that's the part that hurts. And when you talk to the fans and they're like, why? That is the number one question I get all the time. Why haven't you gone back? And I always come back to tell them, you got to ask Survivor, and you got to ask CBS. You got to ask SCG. I have no idea. I played a hard game. I played a good game. And it wasn't up to the producers. It was up to the 17 other people that were out there with us to make a decision who won. And they decided that I won. And Jeff Probst has been on record saying that he didn't think that I was a memorable winner. So why is it his decision to decide if I'm going to go back out there? And I'm done with that. So I don't want to go back out there and play because I don't want it to feel or seem like now, since everybody is rallying around this Black Lives Matter, that they're like, oh, let's get her out there now. And I become kind of like the staple person that you're bringing back based on all of this. I wouldn't want that. But knowing that I can set a platform for the future Black winners, because there will be other Black winners, and I'm looking forward to that day that they can go back and say it's because of this that they were able to get up there, and they were on a season that was more than 2 Blacks, more than 3 Blacks, but it was equal. And just like I believe Clarence said, that when it is equal, or Earl said it, when it's equal, we whoop ass out there. And they go up and shrivel and like, how did that happen? How did they do that? They know how it happened. But before I go, I got to bring Jesus in here because, you know, that is my heart. So I just got to say a little prayer real quick. Lord Jesus, you are our strength. And I thank you for this platform tonight. And I pray that you will just continue to allow for other platforms just as this, that other people, as they listen or watch this, that not only will they get woke, but they will stay woke. It is not that people don't know, they know, but they become ignorant. So let them know that it's okay to ask the question, but don't just ask the question, sit down and learn and be educated so that you can be better in this society and better in this world. And Lord, I just thank you for my brothers and my sisters.
Thank you.
Some that are not here, but some that are coming before us. Lay that platform for them, Father, so that we can become bigger and better and stronger for what we do right here and right now. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen.
Amen. And what you guys just witnessed was the strength of VNI. As much as we talked about race, they never played up the fact that she and I were out there praying every day. I'm the only contestant that brought my Bible. It was the race thing was convenient, but I was like, where are all our Christians out there? Where are all these people that believe in the Lord that saw me out there talking about God and in his name and saw you and I crying, reading words? I was like, that's interesting that we were getting all that. And what you guys just witnessed is that's the Sepia. We gonna stop and pray, because she would pull my coattail every now and then and be like, hey man, let's get it in and pray. And you see the strength of how our people pulled ourselves up from the beginning. When they say Puya, we've been doing that. And it's always through our spiritual connection with through our ancestors and through our Lord and Savior, through Allah, or through Dios, or however you want to get to your higher power. So thank you, V. That was beautiful. Amen. And thank you. Yolanda, let's go to you.
So I want to say this. Black people are the only people that did not come to this country because we wanted to come here. They brought us here in chains. 2, we want our allies. We love our allies. And I'm so hopeful that the people that are watching this that are not Black and are our allies will take active moves to lend us a voice. 3rd, prison replaced slavery. Do your research on the 13th Amendment. That's another story for another day. Another really quick, funny story. I'm an expert on domestic violence. I'm a survivor, and I work in it. And a domestic violence expert and I, both of whom are Black, we have gotten all these calls from white people asking us like what to say or whatever. And all I can say is, we were saying we can't be the only Black people these people know, but we are. We're exhausted. We are exhausted, right? again, I've been given Know Your Rights with the Police trainings, free trainings, and I'll be giving them on Zoom. So stay tuned, because we literally have to teach our kids how to survive an encounter with the police. And then y'all already know, I love V. You can't tell, she's the greatest winner of Survivor ever, as far as I'm concerned. But I want to highlight Sean. This is the last thing I'm going to say. Sean is a Black man who protected that Black woman. I'm going to say that one more again. That's Ebonics. He is a Black man who supported that Black woman. And when you see that, we can win. And this is not that we hate you, we love you, but we are tired of dying, and Survivor could go so far towards helping us have a voice. They could, and that's why we're challenging them, and we're hopeful and we're prayerful that they're up to the challenge. And I love you all. I support the young people. Y'all watch them on Friday. You know, we all have different experiences. Malcolm and Martin weren't the same. We have different people with the same ultimate objective, and we're working to our strengths, and we all have special skill sets. We're smart people, and we just want life to be fair for us on Survivor, and we want for us to be fair for us in the world.
Yolanda, man, first of all, I was like, please don't make me cry. We got people watching, girl. We getting emotional. But I'm going to go to you, Rory. And before I go to you, I want to say, guys, this conversation is not just helping Survivor fans. There are Black and brown and gay and lesbian and Asian folk in universities, in corporate America, in everyday jobs, who, if they tuning in, are like probably crying because they don't have a voice. What we're saying, you can apply in many aspects of our society. And sometimes it feels like the oppression Olympics. It feels like we all trying to get the story of who was oppressed more. And the oppressor is sitting there smiling, go, I'm oppressing all y'all. So just let me know when y'all get done. And then we end up pulling each other and fighting. And well, what about them people? My thing is, even though this is a Black forum, for anyone out there who's marginalized, and know that Black people are always on the forefront for everyone, to know that this conversation is for you too. Even though we're not mentioning demographics, Black usually represents everything. The civil rights movement wasn't called the Black movement, it's called civil rights, and everybody and their mama benefited from that movement. So I just feel proud that all of you on here expressing yourself, and you don't know who in Des Moines, Iowa, or Seattle, or New York, or LA is sitting there watching, going, oh my God, they finally are speaking, and or someone that's going, wow, I did not know. Because CBS and those producers do not have the balls to do this kind of real work. So that, Rob, you and T-Bird get mad props for that. And I'm going to throw it to my brother Rory. And after Rory, we're going to go to Ramona.
I just want to say I'm so honored and privileged and brought up just by seeing all of you, hearing all the stories, knowing that individually, when I was in Vanuatu and the only person who looked like me was, I'm not going to say what I was going to say, but the other Blacks that was living on the island dressed up like little native people, and I had no safety net. And now I realize that I do have a safety net. My safety net is all of y'all. I'm honored, I'm privileged. Y'all are wonderful, wonderful examples. You make me so proud in the difficulties I've had raising my wonderful, wonderful son, who's an Eagle Scout, class vice president, going to college, no kids. My beautiful daughter, who has an attitude and intelligence and beauty and talent. And when I see what they can be by looking at somebody like Julia, it brings love to my heart. I want to say thank you to Rob and T-Bird for allowing me to be a part of this. Sean, thank you for the foresight and the extra work. From Mamona all the way up to V, all the way through to Philip. Thank you all so very, very much. And I proffer my prayers and my hopes for you and all y'all's families.
Thank you.
Shit's hard, but we're gonna survive.
We got it. We ain't got no choice. And Rory, you do have a safe space. And that was really the whole thing, was to create a landing space for future survivors. Once your time is up, that they don't just throw you to the side and you're sitting there going back to your family and community wondering what happened. We want to make sure that we have a landing space for future survivors. Many of us didn't have that, so we had no choice but to rely on individuals, or if we saw each other. So, you know, God is moving. You can feel it. This isn't by accident. So God is moving. You know.
Yes.
Right.
God is good.
Ramona.
Thank y'all so
All the
very, very
time.
much. And Rob, big props to you and T-Bird also, man. I have not heard
Thank
you
you,
express
Rory.
your opinion. Not that I really care most times, but I would be interested in hearing somewhat of what you thought about this evening.
Yeah. Well,
He
then
will at the end.
yeah, well, I'll just say real quick that I think it's so important and you know, such a great thing that you guys are able to share your stories, because I think that and I don't know how much you guys realize that, but I think that there's so many people that may not have a lot of Black people in their lives, and they've watched you on television, and I understand that why you're talking about that edit that they give you is so important, because that shapes how people perceive you. But that there's so many people that may not know a ton of Black people, but they know you guys, and when they hear these stories, it's very impactful and very meaningful. And so I'm really glad that Sean you know, thought of me to have this platform to be able to do this and talk with everybody here tonight.
Ramona.
Rob, I think it's funny that you said that, because I think for the most part, that's true for a lot of people. They may not know a lot of Black people. They may not be comfortable having conversations with Black people. And so Survivor is the lens through which they get to know Black people. And that's why it's so important that we're not stereotyped and caricatured. That's why it's important. Like, so now is the time for change. And no, it's not for us. Like, we're not doing this for us. We're doing this, you know, for, you know, somebody said our children's children, the next, you know, 5 or 6 casts or 10 casts of Survivor. That's who we're doing it for. I would love to see a Survivor cast that's 50% Black people. I can't even imagine it. I can't, but I would love to see it. So the one thing that I would like to leave with is no one likes talking about racism. It's very uncomfortable. But I think it's time that we get comfortable being uncomfortable, because until we sit down and have the conversations, nothing is going to change. Nothing is going to change. And to that end, when we do sit down, let's be active listeners, and let's seek to understand, instead of saying, oh yeah, but just listen. Just listen. We, like Julia said, we don't need our experiences validated. I mean, they happen. They are, period. So get comfortable being uncomfortable. Reach out and have conversations. It's not going to be pretty, but nothing's going to change until that happens.
Thank you, sis. And you're right. Those conversations are hard because they've always been hard. And it's one of the country's original sins. You know, once you acknowledge, then there's an apology. And after an apology, you have to acknowledge what you're apologizing. And this isn't for the individual person who goes, I didn't own slaves. It's the system that's been around in which you've either benefited from or have been able to thrive in. And then when it comes to me, I have to be exceptional. You know, I got to be Michael Jordan, right? I got to be Barack Obama. We see it even in the presidential. Here's Donald Trump that follows Barack Obama, who's arguably one of the greatest presidents, even if you disagree with his politics. And then look what follows. That's America. When you white, you could be Donald Trump. When you Black, you got to be Obama, which is a good thing, because I always feel like, I said it on Survivor, even though we're talking about this, I feel like the advantage is always ours when we have to be social chameleons. So people don't know what we're thinking sometimes. And so people will play themselves when you're the person in the room that think it's all about you. And so to your point, Ramona, the ball is moving. I want to get to my brother Earl, who has a beautiful daughter. After you, Earl, I'm gonna say my piece, and then Rob and T-Bird will wrap this up.
Cute.
Look at the baby.
On mute. Earl, you on mute.
Earl, unmute
Oh,
yourself.
I didn't even hear anything. What happened? Sorry.
No, I'm gonna go to you. I'm gonna follow after you, but I want you to give us.
I just wanted to say thank you for putting this together. It is great hearing the perspective, just like what Ramona said. You know, I support the older generation, the newer generation. We're passing this on. You know, hopefully some change is made. I'm still all about having that equal season. What's the fear? Okay.
Or you better shut your ass up, put that girl in that trampoline.
Yeah.
I love you, but you better listen to the boss, boy.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, thank you, everybody. I got
yeah. No doubt, Earl. So one, I want to say, I give God all the glory. I don't take credit for nothing. This idea was long and I wasn't the only one. All of you have thought about this in some way, shape, or form. When it happens, it goes down. I would like to say I want to definitely thank my foundation, which is my family, my 3 children, my daughter Maya, my son Noah, my son Josh, and my partner Maggie. They allow me the time to get involved in so many things. So I just want to shout them out. I also want to say this has been a very therapeutic and cathartic experience for me. It's long overdue. I've always been told that fans, you know, wondered where I went, or sometimes people want to know, you know, and not all the time, but just I get hit up in my DMs from people I don't know. And I always thought, do other Black survivors go through the same thing? And it was always my dream to have a platform where we can talk uninterrupted and not have the usual cutoffs or the but, like you said, or what about this? And we can just kind of flow and feel each other. And I say, moving forward, let's make sure that the momentum doesn't stop. That's what happens. We got to be careful sometimes when what we ask for, because what will happen is we'll ask for representation like we did in the Supreme Court and we got Clarence Thomas. But what happens is the powers that be will go, how can we still keep it where the face of white supremacy ain't there, but the system is still there? I think we got to hold each other accountable. We got to continue these meetings. We got to make sure everybody who's our kinfolk ain't our kinfolk. You got to make sure that everybody should not be self-appointed, and that just because you have an opinion doesn't mean that it matters. That when you're part of a collaborative group, and the energy will decide. That's how Malcolm and Martin and W.E.B. and Booker T, and even you look at somebody like Nat Turner, who was the preacher. It was like he was doing God's work and it went somewhere else, which was continually doing God's work. So I would just say, I love all you guys. I do want to give a shout out because here's the thing. Most of you on
Listen,
here
hold on, guys. My battery's about to die, Sean. You're hitting on the home run. All I want to say is one thing. I love Black people. I love you guys. Thank you so much for putting it on, Rob. It's been great.
Philip.
But my battery's about to go. It's got 4%. So I'm going to hang out.
I wanted to shout out all the military folks on here that have served our country, because oftentimes people forget.
Yolanda went way left with this shit.
That's
Yolanda,
my
what's going on? What you about to, huh?
My child.
That's your what? Hey, you need to put up a meme or something.
Right. Watch it.
That's your son?
See, you see?
Yeah, I see.
Boy, he treated.
Tell that damn boy to put a shirt on.
Hey.
Boy, go put a damn shirt on. Your mom in the middle of a podcast. What's wrong with you? Put your ass up.
Don't nobody want to see all that.
Hey.
See, look at this.
Lost your damn mind. Your mama in the podcast. Get your ass up and put a shirt on.
Gotta be a banana.
What's up?
He's like, look, I got a real survivor. Come here, son. You can go out.
Damn boy, mom in the middle of a podcast. She got the velvet in the background. He sit his naked ass. Like, come on, man. I don't even know what to do with that now. Wherever we was, y'all.
No, I was just giving y'all love. See, I was saying for y'all that served our country, oftentimes people forget that Black folk and other folk have served this country, and this is all about America. Don't know one person has a monopoly. So I personally want to say thank y'all on this call who served our country. Thank you to all of you who were part of this. going.
Oh God.
My daddy was a Marine.
Air Force.
And so Rob and T-Bird put a bow tie on this thing, and
Yes,
then
thank you. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, T-Bird.
Thank you all for being here. And we haven't even gone to T-Bird the whole night, T-Bird. But I know you must be
This is the quietest I've been.
Yes.
I'm chomping at the bit. I'm chomping at the bit. So I guess I really, in finishing and closing, I just want to say, Sean, thank you so much for including me. Should I have been here? I don't know. I feel like, I'm friends with a lot of y'all. Sepia, you know how I feel about you. What a role model. Ramona, the original, I love you to pieces. I've met you a long time ago, wow. And you know how I feel about you. Ted, and of course, Sean, and I think the world of y'all. I really do. What role models you are. CB, I love you to pieces. We played together, and we have a bond. We have a special bond from the time we were in Africa together. And yes, I would do anything for any of you. CB, absolutely 100% for sure. And Rory, I've not met you. I look forward to meeting you. I am in awe of all of you. Sometimes I think we feel like, oh, let me say this. Jolanda, beautiful woman. And I think you said at the very beginning, if somebody blinked, they would miss you. Doubtful, beautiful lady. That's not going to happen. And Julia, I'm just so honored and impressed with you as well, following what the things you've done and the changes and differences that you've all made. Thank you so much. Sometimes I think we feel like we can't make a difference, but we can. And y'all are all proof of that we can. I mean, your voices, your presence, your delivery, and again, I guess I say, should I be here? Absolutely, I should be here. I care. Your experiences matter, and I am an ally, and I love you all, and I'm so proud to be in the Survivor family with y'all. Much.
You're also well-spoken too. That's so impressive.
Especially
for you, Rob.
For a Georgia girl, huh?
Yes.
No, y'all started to say something, but I didn't. I didn't say it.
Rob, you want to?
Well, I just really appreciated you guys all being here to do this panel. And I really just was very honored when Sean reached out last week to talk about having this panel with me and, and having us set it up. And I'm just really glad that, you thought of this platform as a good home for this type of conversation. So I really appreciate that, you having the faith that, this was the right place for this. And I know that the viewers really appreciated you putting this all together tonight.
No, Rob, this was a collective effort. Yeah, I reached out to you, but this was part of conversations that were had behind closed doors. Like someone mentioned earlier, we do have a letter that was sent to CBS on behalf of Black Alliance, Soul Survivor, Black people, whatever we call it ourselves. It's all asking for the same thing, which is what we've expressed, which is equity, representation, and to make sure that we capitalize on what the world is crying for, which is equality for everyone, but specifically because Black lives do matter. And at this point, we want to make sure it matters in all areas. So definitely want to say thank you again. And you guys are wonderful. And whatever questions they may have, I'm sure you'll have a follow-up at some point. It'd be great to maybe get, more of us and then expand this to also the other demographics of Latino contestants and Asian, and gay and lesbian, and everyone who feels like they haven't had a voice, that maybe we can have a platform one day where we won't need to have these one-offs, where we're just all expressing ourselves in our own unique way and respected. So I love y'all. Thank you, sis B, for that prayer. I wanted to start it out, but we Earl just set it off. It was like, we're supposed to be doing introduction. Earl just, I was like, all right, well, I guess we ain't. Dang, let's jump in. So
hey, Rob, is this going to be made available for people to watch?
I mean that we had about 900 people watching live tonight, and then the podcast is going to be going out tonight, and then people can watch the YouTube video after the fact.
Perfect. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we can copy the URL. And
Oh yeah,
post it.
yeah. We'll get it. I'll get you everything.
Okay.
Awesome.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I love y'all.
Thank you to
Love
everybody that
y'all.
watched. We love
Thank you
you.
all so
Yeah.
much. Much love, respect.
And then I
Hey,
just want
Julia,
to.
one more time. Do you want to plug that thing on Friday, just so it can be not lost? Julia, you want to plug that?
Sure. So I think they should be in the comments. I saw Jatia and Bryce and Jamal dropping the links in the YouTube comments on this stream. But that will be Friday at 7:30 p.m., a panel of 7 of us. And we'll be called Tribes and Tribulations, and we'll be discussing a lot of the same things we're discussing here tonight.
Yeah. And also, Julie and I are going to be catching up tomorrow as well. So we'll have that interview coming for you as well. Sean, thank you for putting this all together tonight. I hope we can do more stuff like this in the future. Thank you all. And thanks everybody for watching this very special episode of the podcast. Take care, everybody. Have a good one.
Jeray, wait.
Bye.
Oh, she left. By myself.
Thanks again.
Okay. All right.